The late afternoon sun spilled across the polished stones of Arlington National Cemetery, painting everything in a quiet gold. A place of silence, reverence, and respect, the kind of silence that carried weight, where even the wind seemed to whisper instead of howl. Visitors slowed their steps here, as though some unseen force reminded them that these grounds were sacred, that every name carved into white stone had given something priceless. And right at the heart of it all stood the tomb of the unknown soldier. Always guarded. Always honored. Always remembered. On this day, the guard was a man named Daniel Harris, a single father, a veteran who had seen things most men could never even imagine, and someone who had chosen to continue serving by becoming a sentinel of the tomb. To wear that uniform, to march that line in all weather, to represent every fallen soldier who never made it home, it wasn't just a job. For Daniel, it was a vow. His life hadn't been easy. His wife had died during childbirth, leaving him to raise his daughter, Lily, alone. There were nights he lay awake staring at the ceiling, wondering if he was strong enough for both roles, mother and father. But when he looked at Lily's small hands clutching his, her eyes filled with trust, he always found his answer. Today, Lily stood quietly at the edge of the crowd, watching her father in awe, as she often did. She was 12 now, old enough to understand the gravity of what her father did, old enough to feel proud. She loved the way people lowered their voices when he walked past in uniform, the way they looked at him with respect. She loved that he belonged to something so much bigger than himself. But not everyone understood. Among the gathered visitors that day was a teenage boy named Ryan, 16 years old, dressed in expensive sneakers, his phone glued to his hand, his posture screaming boredom. His parents trailed behind him, worn down by years of indulging his every whim. Ryan wasn't cruel by nature, but he had been raised in comfort, with every want instantly satisfied, every mistake brushed away. Entitlement had grown around him like armor, making him careless with words that cut deeper than he realized. As Daniel began his precise 21 steps down the black mat, his heels clicking sharply in rhythm, Ryan rolled his eyes. He tapped away at his phone, barely looking up. Seriously? Ryan muttered loud enough for those around him to hear. All this for some dead guys nobody even knows? What's the point? They're gone. Who even cares? Gasps rippled through the crowd. A woman turned to him with sharp disapproval. A man shook his head, muttering something under his breath. Lily, standing just feet away, felt her heart plummet into her stomach. Her father had told her stories, of the sacrifices, of the honor owed to the fallen, and now this boy was mocking it? Daniel heard the words. He always did. As a sentinel, part of his duty was to maintain the dignity of the tomb, to guard it against not only physical intrusion but also disrespect. His eyes snapped toward the sound without breaking formation. He saw the boy's smirk, his casual lean, his lack of understanding. He stopped mid-stride. The silence that followed was heavier than stone. The crowd held its breath. Daniel turned sharply and took 3 deliberate steps toward the boy, his ceremonial weapon at his side, his voice like thunder rolling over marble. It is requested that everyone maintains a level of silence and respect. The words cut through the air like a blade. Ryan froze. His parents looked like they wanted the ground to swallow them whole. But Daniel wasn't finished. He locked eyes with the boy, not with anger, but with the weight of countless lives behind his gaze. You stand here because men and women gave their lives so you could. The tomb honors not just the unknown, but every soldier who never made it home. You don't have to understand, but you will show respect. For the first time in his life, Ryan felt small. Not because someone shouted at him, but because he saw something in this man's eyes he couldn't dismiss, pain, strength, and a kind of love he had never recognized before. Still, his pride clawed back. It's just. I don't get why it matters, he mumbled, looking away. And that's when Lily stepped forward. Her small voice carried farther than she expected. It matters because my mom isn't here. And my dad still comes here every day. And because some people never got to go home. It matters because it should. Ryan blinked. He hadn't even noticed her before. Her words weren't rehearsed, weren't angry, they were raw, honest. They slid under his armor in a way her father's command hadn't. The boy's parents shifted awkwardly, shame coloring their faces. The mother whispered, "Ryan, say something." But Daniel raised a hand, silencing her. "No," he said firmly. "Don't force it. Let him think. Let him understand on his own." The crowd began to disperse, murmuring about what they had just witnessed, but Ryan couldn't move. Something about that little girl's trembling voice stayed with him. The ceremony ended, as it always did. Daniel finished his walk, the precision of his steps undisturbed by the earlier interruption. He disappeared back into the guard quarters. Most visitors left. But Ryan lingered. For once, he didn't feel like scrolling on his phone. He felt like listening. When Daniel emerged later, out of uniform, Lily ran up and hugged him. "Daddy, did I say too much?" she whispered. Daniel kissed the top of her head. "You said what needed to be said." He turned, and there was Ryan, shuffling his feet, his phone tucked away. "Sir," Ryan began, his voice quieter now, I didn't mean to. He trailed off, frustration clear in his tone. He wasn't used to not having the right words. Daniel studied him for a long moment. He saw something flickering there, not defiance, but confusion, maybe even a spark of shame. "Come with me," Daniel said. Ryan's parents looked startled, but Daniel's calm authority left no room for argument. He led the boy a short distance away, to a row of headstones that stretched endlessly in every direction. "You see these?" Daniel asked. Ryan nodded. "Every one of them is a story. A life cut short. Some of them were younger than you when they died. Some never had a chance to grow old, to have kids, to chase dreams. They gave that up for people they didn't even know. For you." Ryan swallowed hard. Daniel continued. "I was overseas once. Lost men I called brothers. Watched kids my daughter's age cry because their dads weren't coming home. You want to know why we honor the unknown soldier? Because sometimes all we have left are bones and dog tags. Because a family is still waiting for someone who never walked through the door again. Respect isn't about the dead, it's about the living who carry their memory." Ryan's throat tightened. His chest ached in a way he couldn't explain. Daniel rested a hand on the boy's shoulder, firm but not unkind. "You're not a bad kid. Just a kid who hasn't had to see what loss really means. But don't wait until life teaches you the hard way. Start now. Respect costs you nothing, but it means everything." For the first time in years, Ryan had no comeback. No sarcasm. Just silence. When he returned to his parents, they didn't scold him. They just hugged him tighter than usual. Something had shifted, even they could feel it. And that night, when Ryan lay in bed, he opened his phone and typed into his notes app, "Respect the things you don't understand yet. Someone else paid the price for them." It wasn't much. But it was a start. Weeks later, Ryan returned, this time on his own. He found Daniel again, guarding the tomb. He didn't interrupt. He didn't complain. He just stood in silence, his head slightly bowed. When Daniel's shift ended and their eyes met, Ryan gave him the smallest nod of respect. Daniel returned it, wordless. Some lessons didn't need words. Lily watched the exchange and smiled. She didn't fully understand it yet, but she knew something good had happened. Because sometimes, the loudest transformations happen in the quietest places. And sometimes, it only takes one moment, one correction, one story, one reminder, to turn an entitled boy into a man who understands the weight of sacrifice. The crowd that